Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today we're going to go back to the Hager's book and continue on with our series of pre-war, guide to collecting pre-war cards. So, a lot of people have asked about this book, and the book is out of print and has been out of print for many years, so it's not going to be easy to find. That's the complete name of it, and I think it was printed in early 1990s, so I don't know where to find it. A lot of people have said they did find some on eBay, but now it's either expensive or they can't find it. So the only other thing I could do is, this is where we have left off here. So I do have this information here when I first got the book. And again, this is really old. I don't know if any of this information is valid any longer, but it does say here, there is a phone number here. Again, this is from the 1990s, and there's a P.O. box and information there. And there was some pricing back in the day, but I don't really know if this is still valid. But that's what I have. There isn't much more information on this thing. Again, this was early in the early 90s, so it was really tough to find any of these. They've already been all sold out for a long time. But that's the only other option that I could share with you. There is an address there, and there is a phone number here. I don't know if that's valid. But anyway, let's get back into it. Last time where we stopped off was at the Cracker Jacks. So we did go over the 1915 and 1914 Cracker Jacks. So we are now in the Sporting News, the 1915 Sporting News. And the 1915 Sporting News, let me see if I can get you a good look at that here. Okay, so I want to make sure you guys can see along with me here. The 1915 Sporting News is the M101-5. And this one, as you can see, comes with different backs. So you're going to have the same image, but a lot of different backs on that. And it was issued in 1915 by the Sporting News. And it was the baseball player of the world, and in St. Louis, Missouri. The cards were issued as a premium, and other companies, as well as bakeries and stores like Wild Bakery or Wheel Bakery and Globe Stores also used them. The set features black and white pictures of the players from the American, the National League, and the Federal Leagues. The pictures were enclosed by a white line border. Near the bottom is the player's name, and beneath that is his position, the team, and the league, with the card number at the bottom of all of that. The back is laid out horizontally as follows. It either says the Sporting News, the baseball paper of the world, 5 cents, and then it says other information on there. Or sometimes you'll find it with just a standard blank back, or a Famous and Bar back, or a Wheel Baking, or a Globe Stores, or those are very rare. The set is 1 5/8 by 3. Very similar to the, I think it's the same size as a T206 card. And the set is a total of 202 cards in the entire set. And there are some awesome players in this set, including the Babe Ruth rookie card. You got the big Babe Ruth rookie card in here. You have George Sisler. You have a Jim Thorpe card, which is awesome. Again, these prices are back from the 90s. I wish I could buy them today, because this Babe Ruth there is $1 million card at this point. So Jim Thorpe, and you got the Honus Wagner in there also. As you can see, all of the big names. You got the Shoeless Joe Jackson, which is another incredible card. So this set, this Sporting News set, which is what it's called, has really huge cards in there. It's one of the best sets from that era. And sometimes it's a 1916 or 1915. We'll get to the 1916 in a minute, but they're considering a 1915 issue. So some of the other stars in here, again, are going to be Grover Cleveland. All the big names are in here. Mordecai Brown, Sam Crawford, all the big names are in there. And, he pretty much, you could see some of the rankings and how they recommend them and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that it says on there. So, again, he talks about here, undervalued, and it was undervalued in those days. And, I wish I would have bought some back in the day. But again, the big ones are going to be the Jim Thorpe, the Honus Wagner, the Joe Jackson, and the Babe Ruth rookie card. That's the big boys in that set. So after that, again in 1915, there's a lot of really, as you can see, there's a lot of sets that were made in the early 1900s, and all of them are pretty rare, except for the T206s, T205s, those kind. So now we're going to get into the 1915 Victory cigarettes. They were issued in 1915 by Victory Cigarettes, which again, it was a division of American Tobacco Company, because in those days, American Tobacco was like Fanatics. They owned all of the tobacco companies, and then they just produced the cards. A lot of them had the same fronts, but the backs were represented by the tobacco that they were inserted in or distributed with. So American Tobacco Company had the Victory cigarettes, and they were distributed in the New Orleans area. The set consists of players from the National and Federal League. The set is very similar to the popular T206 and coupon cigarettes of 1914 through 1916, which is the T213 set. Again, all the fronts usually are the same. The front of these glossy color litho cards feature a player enclosed by a white border. At the bottom is the player's name, team, and league in blue letters. The Victory Tobacco back is the back to the 1915 issue. The wording follows. It says, Victory Tobacco, 5 cents, a good smoke and a good chew. And the set consists of 30 players, and it says 50 times rarer than the T206 set. And there are some huge names in there, but the backs are really cool. There's some huge names. You've got a Ty Cobb in there, Chief Bender, Clark Griffith. You got Clark Griffith. You have Walter Johnson, Joe Tinker. So you can see they were expensive back there, and Nat Blageway. But the Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson, and Nat Blageway are the big cards in that set. And again, it's a tough set to find. He writes in there extremely rare and undervalued. So very rare, one of the rarer sets from that era. Next, 1915, we got the Z-Nut. And again, all of these Z-Nuts, I don't spend much time with these. They are very rare cards, but there aren't really many Hall of Famers, if any, in most of these Z-Nut sets, because these were produced, again, in the San Francisco area. And this particular set was issued in 1915. It's the E137, issued in 1915 by the Collins McCarthy Candy Company of San Francisco. It's the 5th series and the rarest of the Z-Nut sets. The cards have been unpopular because they feature Pacific Coast League players. These black and white pictures of the players are printed on a white borderless background and are dated. So you see that it has a date, and it tells you what team they played on. They're really cool poses. They're really nice pictures, and they do have a coupon on the bottom, which is usually cut off. And there's 141 cards. They're 2 inches by 3 1/8 without the coupon. But as you can see, there are no big names in here. I mean, I think it says here Harry Heilman. He's probably the only Hall of Famer. So, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this one here, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. But the main thing with this is the rarest of the Z-Nut series. After that comes one of the coolest cards here, which is the 1916 Boston Store. And these are really, really cool and rare. They were issued in 1916, again by the Collins and McCarthy Candy Company of San Francisco. And they were issued for the Boston Store. A Boston Store was like a clothing store for kids, for boys. These cards feature players in black and white. The pictures are enclosed by a wide line border. At the bottom is the player's name, position, team, and the number of the card right underneath both of that. The backs read as follow: boys who want clothing, hats, caps. It says all other stuff in there. And sporting goods of very sort. We'll find the best here and the lowest prices at the Boston Store. So it talks about that. The cards are printed on thin string mulch paperboard with enameled fronts. Cards 1 through 100 are an 1/8 inch shorter than cards 101 to 200. Now that's important to know because you may think it's trim, but they were just a little bit narrower, cards 1 through 100, than cards 101 to 200. There's 205 total cards. Of course, there's like with variations, but it's a 200 card set basically. And again, it says sizes may vary by 1/8 of an inch. And there are some big names in this set from Grover Cleveland, and you can see they're expensive. And it says a very rare set. And it talks about Bill Hughes and stuff that had some of those. But the big cards here are going to be, again, the big boys, the Ty Cobb. If you move on to the next page here, you can see there's a Joe Jackson, Rogers Hornsby, Walter Johnson. There's all the big names. And again, you've got the Babe Ruth. And they call that the Babe Ruth rookie card also because it was, kind of 1915, 1916. Some of the dating on these, some people will call them 1915, 16, so maybe they were distributed within those 2 years. But so this one here in this book is considered his rookie card also. And that's the big one. So, and you have Hannes Wagner, of course, in that set also. So this is a really awesome set. One day I'd like to have cards from this set. So the big boys here are going to be the Hannes Wagners, the Babe Ruth, the Joe Jackson, the Walter Johnson, the Ty Cobb, and a few other Hall of Famers. But again, a set of 200 cards. They're 2 by 3 1/4, and they're, kind of really cool cards. The Boston Store, the 1916. And again, it just says it's a very rare set. So after that, you have a very similar set to that, almost the same. And that is and again, you're gonna have a lot of these cards that were manufactured by pretty much the same manufacturers over and over with the same pictures on the front, but the backs are going to be the difference, how they were distributed. So the 1916 Collins McCarthy, that's the E135. Again, same size as the other one, they're 2 by 3 1/4. And again, this has a set of 205 cards. Again, 200 with a few variations. So pretty much the same thing, issued in 1916 by the Collins McCarthy Candy Company of San Francisco. This was the only set to use the Collins and McCarthy name. So this actually has, you could see the Collins McCarthy logo on there, the only one, even though they produced the other ones too. It says, however, the Z-Nut sets from 1911 to 1937 and the Boston Store set of the same year remain their most famous issues. The front of the cards feature a full-figure black and white action pose of the player, enclosed by a wide line border. At the bottom is the player's name, position, team, and then the number of the card right at the bottom of that. The reverse states this is one of 200 pictures comprising baseball's Hall of Fame. There are 199 others distributed by Collins and McCarthy. So the cards, they're printed on thin enamel front, with a thin enamel front coated, and it's a string mulch paperboard, so they're not very thick. And again, just like the other set, some can be up to an 1/8 inch shorter, cards 1 through 100. Again, it's basically the same guys in this set as the other one. You've got the Ty Cobb, you've got, you know, Johnny Evers, you got all the big guys, including the Joe Jackson and the Babe Ruth rookie card again. And this is the Babe Ruth and the 1960 Collis McCarthy. So you have the Babe Ruth, and you have, of course, the Honus Wagner. It's the same as the previous set we just saw. Different bag, different distribution, different people, but again, pretty much the same fronts. You got the Wagner, you got the Ruth rookie, you got the Joe Jackson, you got the Ty Cobb, you got the Walter Johnsons, you got all those guys. Again, here it says it's a very rare series, and you know, the same as the previous one that I showed you, the Boston store. So moving on to the next issue we have here is really one of the most famous ones that we see. Is that it's the 1916 M101-4. And this one, again, it's 1916 Sporting News, and you're gonna see a lot of the same things that you saw in the 1915 version of it. Just different backs depending on how that was distributed. So this one, the M101-4 1916, it was printed in 1916 by the Sporting News, which was the baseball player of the world in St. Louis, Missouri. The cards were issued as a premium by other companies like Wheel Baking, Globe Stores, and many others. The Tribune, Indianapolis Brewing, Standard Biscuit, those type of companies. The set features black and white pictures of the players from the American and National and the Federal League. The photos are enclosed by a white border. Near the bottom is the player's name, position, team, and the league, followed by the card number on the bottom. The backs, again, are horizontal, and it says the Sporting News and the information there, 5 cents for the copy of the news and that type of thing. The cards are printed on a standard cardboard stock, so it's a little bit thicker than the other cards that I showed you previously. And as you can see, there's so many different backs here that you have the way that they were distributed. There's the Wild Baking, the Globe, the Tribune, Indianapolis, and there has been some other oddball ones that have been found, but just like the other sets, these sets tend to be all around 200 cards, and the size is 1 5/8 by 3, so it's a little, they're smaller than the ones that we just talked about earlier. But you're still gonna have some big names in this set. Of course, you have the Ty Cobb. You're gonna have the Joe Jackson. You're gonna have the Babe Ruth card in there. You're gonna have the Honus Wagner in there. So basically all the Hall of Famers are gonna be in here. Now this one does not have the Jim Thorpe card, but other than that, all of the other the big names are in there. So you got Grover Cleveland Alexander, you got Mordecai Brown, you got of course Ty Cobb, Sam Crawford, Chick Gandil, Joe Jackson, Walter Johnson, Nat Blageway, Honus Wagner, and Babe Ruth again is the big one on the set. So that's the 1915 Sporting News, and what it says about that, it says basically, you know, it's an undervalued, and this guy says they're all undervalued, and based on the year that have gone by, they were very undervalued. If you would have bought them back then, you would have been rich back right now. Some of those cards. Okay, moving on. The Z-Nut, and I'm going to move on pretty quickly with this. There's a few big cards, but this is the entire Z-Nut sets from 1916 to 1937. What I like about this page is it just kind of gives you a whole summary of them, because unless you're a Z-Nut, big time Z-Nut collector, you're really not going to be too interested in them. Just a few cards that are very valuable, but most of them, they're all minor league players back in the day. So it just kind of gives you a view from 1916 all the way through 1937 where they were produced. And they were issued again by Collins and McCarthy in San Francisco, and they included coupons. There's tons of players in there, but one of the most popular one in the entire Z-Nut, and we'll go through it real quick and show you, are first the Jim Thorpe from 1922. There is a Z-Nut card 1922 of Jim Thorpe, and that is a huge card, and it's card number 145, and you can see it there, what it was worth back in the day. It's almost impossible to find. It's a minor league card of Jim Thorpe, and that's in the Z-Nut. There's a few other big names in there, Tony Lazzeri, Paul Wainer, and Lloyd Wainer, and Earl Averill, which come out, in the 1920s, 25, 26 Z-Nut. In the 1927 Z-Nut, you have, let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see. The 1927 Z-Nut, you have, Harry Hooper, Earl Averill, 28, 29, Ernie Lombardi, 1929, Lefty Gomez and Ernie Lombardi again. And but when you get to this here, this is the big card of all the Z-Nut cards. It's the 1936 Z-Nut Joe DiMaggio, which really is kind of his rookie card, because he calls it a rookie card, I'll call it a rookie card, but it's really like a pre-rookie because he is in his San Francisco, I think it's San Francisco Seals uniform, and I think it's a 1937. They have it marked as 1936, but I think it might be a 1937. I'm not real sure, but anyway, that is a big card, and there's two different ones. There's him batting and then him throwing, and you also have Vince DiMaggio and Dom DiMaggio in those sets. So as far as the Z-Nut cards, what you're looking for are those guys right there. And like it says here, it says some of the ones, the 1916 Black Sox Riceburg card is popular. The 1922 Jim Thorpe, the 1923 Cochran or Wainers, and of course the DiMaggio. It says 36 DiMaggio, which is here. So that's pretty much the whole history of Z-Nut. There are some Hall of Famers, but really the DiMaggio and Jim Thorpe are the ones you want to find in the Z-Nut cards. So moving on to 1919, the coupon cigarettes. And the 1919 coupon are the T213, and they're kind of, there's 16 for 10 cents is what it says on there. These were issued in 1919 and by the American Tobacco Company again, and with the popularity of coupon cigarettes, they were in the New Orleans area. The set consists of players from the National League, American League, and Federal and Southern Leagues. Because this company is a subsidiary of American Tobacco Company, the series is very similar to the T206 set. So you'll see that the fronts of these are all pretty much the same cards. It's a little bit different because they do have the writing on the player's name in blue on the bottom. It says the front of these color lithos cards exhibit a pose of the player surrounded by a white border. At the bottom is the player's name and team. The reverse separates this from the other coupons like the 1910 and the 1914-16 series. The back displays the advertisement for coupon cigarettes, 16 for 10 cents, mild and sweet. So that's what makes them a little bit different than the other coupon cigarette cards that were produced earlier. But there's huge names in here like always. You're gonna have a couple of Ty Cobbs. I'll go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. You have two different Ty Cobb cards in there. You have a batting pose and a portrait pose. You know, Eddie Collins, Sam Crawford, Johnny Evers, Miller Huggins, Tris Speaker, Walter Johnson. So you got a lot of big names in that set. And it's the 1916 coupon, the T213. Next, we're going to move into, there was really nothing in 1920. So we got to go from 1920 to 1921. And the 1921 is a real popular, this is one of the most popular series, and these are really awesome cards. This is a 1921 American Caramel series of 80 cards, the E121. And these are very popular. They were issued in 1921 by the American Tobacco Company of Lancaster and York, Pennsylvania. The front of these black and white sepia cards depict an action pose of the player surrounded by a white border. At the bottom is the player's name, position, team, and league. The reverse of the cards printed in black ink exhibits. These cards consist of 80 of the leading baseball stars. And it says this is incorrect since there are 136 known cards in this set. There are 2 different backs. This set ends the top line of the words 80 of the other set ends with the words 120 of the. So the latter, the one that says 120, is the rarest version of it. So these are little details and things that you can learn when you're reading this, because this says, if you could see, it says 80, but there's another one that says 120, and that's rarer. This is followed by the next line, American National League, and so on and so on and so on. These are printed on standard pressboard paper stock, so they tend to be rather thinner cards, and they're tougher to get in good condition. They tend to have creases. There are 28 Hall of Famers in the set, and the set is 2 by 3.5, which is bigger than the T206 cards. They're a little bit larger. And again, a set of 135, even though it says a set of 80. So let's go through and see who's on this list here. Who are the big guys? Of course, you got Ty Cobb, and you have 3 different Ty Cobb cards. You have Ty Cobb look front, you have Ty Cobb look right, and you have Ty Cobb looking right, manager on the front. So 3 different Ty Cobb cards, and that's why it says there's 135 cards, because you have different versions. And then they really recommend this set. Candy said it's tough to find, undervalued. It says unattractive, but I think it's attractive because it has actual photos of the players. That's why I like it. So who else is in this set? We've got, let's see. I know we got Babe Ruth here. We have a few versions of the Babe. We have the Babe Ruth, and then you have one that says Babe, in quotes, Ruth, and then you have one that says George Ruth. And again, those are pretty much valued about the same, cards 95 through 97, how they number them there. So the Babe Ruth is really the big card in that set. But, you know, like always, you have all the Hall of Famers, you know, like Tris Speaker and John McGraw and the Walter Johnson. You have a couple of versions of Walter Johnson. You have Walter Johnson throwing, and you have a Walter Johnson regular one there. And again, the other players that you have on the set are going to be your usuals with Ty Cobb and all that. Now, you don't have, in this particular set, there is no Hannes Wagner or any of the other guys. So, and there is no Cy Young in there either. So, that's the 1921 American Caramel series of 80 E121. Now you have the 1921 American Caramel series of 120 E121. So this is a little bit different. This one says 120. It's the same as the other ones. The pictures are all the same. Issued in the same year, same size. This is a set of 138. But the difference is that it says a series of 120 on the back. So again, You know, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but it's very similar to that. The difference in this is just some of the players and then the values. And you do have, again, the Ty Cobb. You have the Ty Cobb, a couple different versions of it, batting and throwing, the same as you saw in the previous one. Like I said, these are the same guys, the same set, the same thing pretty much, except on the back it says a series of 120, E121. It has a Babe Ruth, and the difference between this set is that this 120 is the one that has the Babe Ruth montage and has 3 different Babe Ruths. So this is the big difference between the 120, the E121 set of 120 and the E121 set of 80. The set of 80 doesn't have the 3 Babe Ruths, not in the different poses, where this one does. And here are the 3 different poses that it has the Babe Ruth in. One is the Babe Ruth pose, and that's really what we call the montage version of it. That's the montage version where you see his face and then 2 other versions of his body. And there's 2 different ones of those. There's one that is that the Babe in quotes and just says Babe Ruth. Again, that's the montage version. And I have one of those, and you've seen that in the past. Also, they have the Babe Ruth holding a bird. And again, the Babe is in quotes or not in quotes. So 2 different versions of that, the Babe holding a bird. They have these all priced the same, but really the montage version is worth a lot more now than him holding a bird. The other one is Babe holding a ball. And that's similar to the American Camo version, that some similar picture of it. But again, it's Babe. One is in quote, the Babe, and one is quote, not in Babe. So there's technically, you know, a lot of different versions. But that one, he's holding a ball. And so there's 3 Babe Ruth cards in the E121. The Babe Ruth montage, Babe Ruth holding a ball, and Babe Ruth holding the bird. Those are the 3 big cards in that set. But there's also, again, a lot of Hall of Famers. Tris Speaker, there's Walter Johnson in that set also. Again, with Rogers Hornsby and the Ty Cobb. But the Ty Cobb and the Babe Ruth are the 2 most important cards in this one series 121. Moving on, there's one of the coolest sets around, and this one is the Oxford Confectionery, the 1921 Oxford Confectionery. And this was issued in 1921 by the Oxford Confectionery Company of Oxford, Pennsylvania. The cards are black and white and exhibit a studio pose of the player. The player's name and team are in the white border at the bottom. As you can see, this is the Ty Cobb card right here. The following star baseball players, and then it talks about the back. It says the following star baseball players of both major leagues, and it has a whole list of all of the players. It's only a set of 20 cards, and it's 1 5/8 by 2 3/4. So they're not very big, but they're bigger than a tobacco card size. But they're really tough to find. It says the cards were printed on thin paper stock and packaged with caramels. So imagine, it's just basically like a piece of paper packaged with caramels. The series is loaded with Hall of Famers, and you got to be careful because there are reprints, and the reprints tend to be glossy. These cards are tough to find, and again, big names. It says that this is a very rare set. The best Hall of Famers in the series goes to Johnson, Alexander, Tris Speaker, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and Rogers Hornsby. And you can see that there. The big one are the Ty Cobb and the Babe Ruth. But really almost all of the ones in this set are Hall of Famers. And that's the 1921 Oxford Confectionery. It's the E253. Really cool cards. After that, and we're going to stop, I think, at this. Actually, these are very similar, so we're going to stop right here. And the next one, we'll start with the 1921, and we'll go with the Nielsen's Chocolate and go with the famous American Caramel set and go from there. still have a lot more to cover in this book. So anyway, guys, we will stop right here. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. I hope that you guys are learning from this stuff. And all I can share is, you know, how to order the book. I don't know. But good luck, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll continue to share this entire book. We're almost halfway, and I missed the 1800 cards, but we're going to go ahead and get that at the end. But we're going to continue this series, and I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're watching, and thanks for watching. Have an awesome day. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think, and I reply to all of them. Have an awesome day. It's Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks again.